Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday the 13th. Just like I did on Halloween, I want to start this stream by doing another tier list. They're always fun to do. Love talking about horror movies. Friday the 13th is one of my favorite horror franchises. I think there's some great movies in this franchise, some that are not so good. We'll talk about those. But yeah, so let's jump into our tiers. So at the very top, our S tier, we have Stupendous. Our A tier, really good movies, maybe some flaws here and there. Where's the Corkscrew? Our C tier, or would that be B? I don't know. We got S, A, B. Call this B tier. Killer Mommy. Our C tier, Damn Enchiladas. And then our bottom of the barrel, Gets Head Punched Off. Those of you that have seen some of these movies, you'll know what that is referring to. All right, so let's start off with the original, the classic, the OG Friday the 13th. So this isn't my favorite in the franchise. I've really never met someone who actually has this at the top of their list, but I think it's enjoyable. I have a good time watching it. I really like the score of this movie. You get the iconic, you have that. You have the cool, I think it's cool, like the camp setting. The characters are goofy fun. And I think that's, if you care about your characters, that's hard to do in a slasher film. And this is still like amongst the early slashers, I guess. Came out in 1980, was trying to rip off Halloween, made a shitload of money for the very low budget they had. My negatives with this film are that it does feel very padded for runtime. It's not even that long, but nothing much really happens until the last 20 or 30 minutes. You have Alice, who I don't think is a very strong final girl, making coffee for like, I don't know, a good 5-10 minute chunk of the movie. There's one part where like, I think is it the police officer or someone's riding out on a scooter and like you see him do like a 50-point turn to leave. It's just like padded runtime for that, but I still have fun with this. I'm never like upset when I watch it, but it's going to go right smack dab in the middle for me in Killer Mommy. Part 2, I really like this movie. I think it includes the best part of the first film because you sort of take the third act and plug that onto the first part of part 2. Yeah, it just gives us more. The final girl in part 2, Ginny, is great, like easily one of the best throughout the whole franchise. We continue to get the atmospheric camp setting, which I really like. And I think Sackhead Jason is really creepy. Some people seem to complain about him or have a problem with him, but I'm not really sure why. Yeah, we don't get the iconic hockey mask until the next one, but for what it is, I think, I don't know, something about the Sackhead is, I think, a lot creepier. I like the final third of this more than the final third of the original. It's just a really solid early 80s slasher. It introduced, well, we got Jason in the original at the very end, right? But this, don't ask too many questions of why he's an adult in this one, but I think it's really good. It's going to go up in Where's the Corkscrew. I like it a lot more, at least slightly more than the original. Part 3 is not nearly as good as part 2, and I think I like part 1 a little bit more than part 3. There's still some fun to be had with this entire franchise, to be honest. There's a very odd like disco addition to the opening music. It's very strange and comes out of left field, and the attempts at 3D are really silly. Like even if you don't watch this with 3D glasses, it's like all it is just them trying to stick something in your face. See, it's 3D. It's goofy. Another strong final girl with Chris. Richard Brooker's Jason is really creepy in this as well. You get the iconic hockey mask, and when he takes it off, his face, like the first time I saw this, kind of freaked me out. The other characters I can take or leave. Shelley, it was a place in history in this franchise of it's through him that Jason gets the hockey mask. I find him to be really irritating. I don't like his humor. He's just annoying. But yeah, entertaining, tense final act. When I listened to the commentary for this movie, it was with the cast and director, and they just sounded like they had a lot of fun making this movie. So it's going to go just below part 1 in Kill Her Mommy. So still middle of the road. I enjoy it. The final chapter. This tends to be towards the top of almost everyone's list I see. It feels like an actual like movie production went into this film, whereas the first 3 kind of still definitely have that low budget feel to it. It's just a classic slasher. You got Tom Savini coming back to do the special effects. He was the guy that did the special effects in the first one, and they're really good. And Jason in this one is just really menacing. It's like he's throughout most of the movie, he's just in the shadows, but when you see him, it's just like he's like, I don't know, angry, more visceral. He is gonna fuck shit up. He's gonna kill all these teenagers. And the teenagers, they're goofy fun. You get Crispin Glover in this doing his funny dance. You have young oh god, what's his name? Corey Feldman. Yeah, he's great. Tommy and Trish, our 2 main leads, they're characters you can really root for. I like them. I like that they succeed at the end. Again, just really great classic slasher. It's not going to go all the way up to stupendous for me, but it is going to go above part 2. Where's the corkscrew? Where that quote comes from. Really, really like this movie. Part 5, A New Beginning. This is when the series starts to really become just kind of dumb fun. You really got to be into that sort of thing if you want to like this franchise. It's not Jason, but for all intents and purposes, it is Jason. It's just up until the end when you see who's behind the mask. It's Jason throughout most of this movie. Come on. Interestingly, it mirrors part 1 with the sort of vengeful parent twist, right? He's just dressed up in Jason cosplay, right? The hillbilly characters are, of course, annoying, but they're kind of schlocky fun, kind of like the whole film. The extra characters, Reggie is great. What's his name? Demon. For the very short bit he's in this movie is entertaining. When he dies on the toilet because of those damn enchiladas, so that's where that's gonna go. It's just stupid fun, but it's not a great movie. There are lots of other Friday the 13th I prefer to watch instead of it. The director was a former, but he was a porn director, and listening to his commentary with 2 of the actors was just so entertaining. I highly encourage you to listen to it if you like this franchise. It's just really funny. They're just kind of poking fun at the movie throughout the whole time. And yeah, it's just a really entertaining listen for a very dumb, entertaining movie. So lower end of the franchise, sure, but I like this franchise, so I'm even going to have some fun with the bad ones. Part 6, Jason Lives. We get our Frankenstein-inspired Friday the 13th, but this movie is also pretty influential with its meta humor. I think it influenced Scream, so that's got to count for something, right? They really just lean into the humor and the fun of this series. It starts off with a bang, literally. Jason coming back to life as our super strong zombie Jason, and you just follow his rampage throughout. Unlike all of the earlier movies where you do, like, even when you see Jason in the beginning, he's kind of in the shadows. I like that you see Jason throughout this entire movie. It's well made. I'm repeating myself, but it's a lot of fun. That's why I like this franchise. I will say, like, the whole trope of authority figures not believing our main character, Tommy Jarvis, in this one's kind of annoying, but that's what moves the plot along. We end back up at the camp in the end with some sort of, I don't know if this is like, canon that Jason doesn't kill kids, but he let that little girl go, right? I don't know, maybe because they're innocent or something like that. But yeah, this is really well made, a lot of fun. This is another movie along with part 4 that typically I see at the top of other people's rankings. And it's not going to be any different for me. It's not going to go to the very top, There are a couple other movies I enjoy a lot more, but it is definitely going to go to the top of Where's the Corkscrew. These three movies in the Where's the Corkscrew tier, I get so much enjoyment out of them. Now on to one I don't get a lot of enjoyment out, Part 7, The New Blood. Several of the characters are just terrible in this, but I do feel bad for Tina throughout most of this, and that's never going to be entertaining for me. Just like feel sad and for this character who like is under the thumb of this kind of abusive psychiatrist who wants to, I guess, use her power or something like that. She's our Carrie knockoff, but her showdown with Jason at the end is a lot of fun and it's just awesome. It's kind of refreshing to see someone actually put up a fight against him. I'm not as entertained by the whole movie up until that last little bit. You do get the classic sleeping bag kill, but I think this is where the MPAA started neutering the kills. A lot of cutaways from the kills, but you get the beginning of Kane Hodder's tenure as Jason. He tends to be people's favorite. Jason's look when the mask comes off is probably the coolest it looks, I think, throughout the entire franchise. And yeah, it's okay, but I'm not as fond of it as the others we've talked about so far, so it's going down into our bottom tier of gets head punched off. Speaking of gets head punched off, where that comes from is Part 8, and I'm with the majority of people that this is my least favorite of the Friday the 13th franchise. Again, dumb fun to be had. If you're wanting that sort of thing, just sort of turn your brain off and watch this. But this is still my least favorite. Fun kills, like the boxing kill. But, you know, a lot of the kills in this, just like in Part 7, they're very neutered by the MPAA. We don't really get what we're promised with the title of this. Jason Takes Manhattan. It's not even Manhattan, it's Vancouver, and it doesn't happen until the last 20 or so minutes. Jason standing in the middle of Times Square is pretty cool. But for the most of it, it's just Jason takes a boat to Vancouver, not really Manhattan. Very weird ending too, with, I don't know, the sort of sewer sludge melting Jason back into a little kid. Very odd, and that ending doesn't connect with what we see next or any of the others. So yeah, to the bottom of the list it goes. Sorry, any fans of Part 8 out there, but something's got to come in last. Part 9, not even really called Part 9. Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. This was a first time watch for me on my most recent watch through of this series. I don't know why I hadn't seen it up until that point, but it was my first time watching it. The positives for this movie are that at least it's different. It's not just wash, rinse, repeat, the same slasher formula that we see throughout the rest of the franchise. So if you are doing like a marathon of this series, it's a nice palate cleanser just for something different. And this movie is just bonkers. It's got some funny self-awareness. If you watch the unrated cut, definitely some gnarly kills. I'm glad we don't get the watered down version of the kills in this movie. The whole mythology behind Jason's immortality is kind of interesting. The fact that he, you know, is a Deadite in all but name, right, from the Evil Dead franchise. But the worm thing is kind of weird and wacky, and yeah, you don't really get much actual Jason in this movie, and that might not be always refreshing. I like Jason. I want to see Jason. At least this movie does try to do something different. Sorry to my buddy Ken Sledge. He loves this movie. This is his favorite in the franchise. But for me, it's not going to go on the bottom tier. Don't worry, Ken. It is going to go just below Part 5 in the Damn Enchiladas category. I think that Creighton Duke, for someone who is supposed to have followed Jason for like 100+ kills, he is just so useless. He does almost nothing in this movie up until the very end. He just sort of sits in a jail cell throughout most of it. And I just find his character, and he's just useless. He does almost nothing. Next time I watch it, I'll be sure to listen to the director's commentary. I always like listening to commentaries on subsequent watches. So hopefully I find a little bit more to appreciate about this movie. I appreciate the creativity. It's just definitely on the lower half for me. Jason X, however, is still in the lower half for me, but this is my paradigm example of so bad it's good. The last time I watched this with a group of friends for like a bad movie night, and this was my pick, and we were just kind of laughing throughout all of it. It's just goofy. It's entertaining. Send Jason to space. At the very end, he becomes like Mecha Jason, Uber Jason. That's what I would call him, right? It doesn't look good. It looks like it could be made for TV, like something on the Sci-Fi Channel, right? This movie does have a place in cinematic history, though, being the first all-digital ever film. So there's that going for it. But yeah, I just lean into the fun side of this. So I think I give Jason Goes to Hell a bit more creativity points for trying something new, and this just goes back into the slasher tropes. Yeah, dumb characters, fun kills, so on and so forth, right? But I do have a lot of fun with it. So it's going to go at the bottom end of Damn Enchiladas. It certainly, I like it more than our bottom two here, but I get more entertainment out of 5, and I'm giving Jason Goes to Hell some creativity points. So right there. Bottom end of the franchise, but I have fun with it for what it is. Now, so far, probably wondering, well, what the heck's going to go up in Stupendous? Are any of these, like, if I don't have part 6 or part 4 up there, what could possibly go up there? Freddy vs. Jason is going up to Stupendous. Probably pissed a lot of people off with that, but look, I didn't grow up watching horror movies. I didn't really get into horror until I was 18. If you want to hear sort of the full story behind this movie, go watch over at Sledgehammer Horror, my first horror movie on Ken and Ashley's podcast about my first experience with Freddy vs. Jason. This was, in fact, my first full horror movie, so I got introduced to both Freddy and Jason at the same time. It is my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Gasp, I know, right? And it's one of my favorite Friday the 13th movies. It did scare the crap out of me the first time I watched it. Now I watch it, and, you know, it's not scary at all. It's a lot of fun, just super entertaining, seeing these two titans of horror fight each other. So yeah, maybe there is some nostalgia here since this was my first horror movie and it scared me, and now I just enjoy it. So there's kind of a victory in that, I suppose. It's the last time we get to see Robert Englund really play Freddy in a movie. So it's important for that reasons. Ken Kirzinger is decent as Jason. I think everyone's sort of rightly upset. Don't know why we didn't get Kane Hodder. Kane Hodder wanted to do it, and he just wasn't offered the role for some reason. But for what we get, Ken Kirzinger does a good job. The characters are stupid teenagers. Their acting's not great. There's the CGI worm Freddy thing that's terrible looking, but I can't help but just love this film. It's so entertaining to me. So it goes up in Stupendous. And speaking of Stupendous, where that comes from is Friday the 13th, 2009, the remake, reboot, whatever it is. I don't care. It is my favorite Friday the 13th. Some people absolutely hate this movie. I genuinely don't understand Friday the 13th fans that don't like this. It has the best bits of the first 3 movies and some of the fourth. But it's just a really great slasher. It has a central character in Jared Padalecki that you want to root for. He's trying to find his sister throughout this movie. And yeah, another one that's fun, gory, consistent pace throughout. The first 15 minutes of this film are amazing. I think nearly every Friday the 13th fan, at least that I've heard of, say the first 15 minutes of the 2009 movie are easily some of the best in the entire franchise. And I think the pace maintains throughout. And Derek Mears's Jason is just a brutal survivalist freight train. Yeah, I would not want to go up against that guy. Yes, the characters are absolutely terrible. Trent is just the douchiest douchebag trope ever. But he really gets what's coming to him. But they're supposed to be the sort of embodying the tropes of the slasher franchise. And yeah, just another great, super fun movie that I absolutely love. Every other film in this franchise has terrible characters, so I don't know why this gets picked on. I just think it does it better than any other movie in this franchise. So this is my ranking for the Friday the 13th franchise. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. And enjoy the rest of your Friday the 13th. Cheers.